Welcome back. It's Mrs. Fleming, and today is Wednesday, where we're going to practice making inferences by watching a short documentary. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen so we can get started. So Wednesday. So our learning target for today is that I can make inferences from pictures and a short documentary. So did you know that inferences are used every single day, and it's something that we do all of the time? It helps us respond to certain situations and know how to react socially. When I think of inferences, I think of I read, I know, and so. Sometimes when we talk about like I read and what's in the text, it doesn't always mean like what I'm physically reading. Sometimes it could be like, what do I see in this picture? What am I watching while I'm watching a video? And what is it that the author or the situation is presenting to me? I know is like, what do I see about it in my mind or in my experiences that help me relate to the situation? What information can I draw on from my background experiences that would help me understand the situation? And then finally, and so what new idea do I have that isn't provided in the text? So when I put I read and I know together, I'm putting something together from the text plus something from my life. And so it gives me a bigger picture of what's actually going on. What we're going to do today is we're going to actually practice making inferences in pictures before we move on to trying to draw inferences or make inferences in a documentary. So the title of this painting is called Drop Off, and it's by Pascal Campion. And I want you to look at the picture. And then as you look at this picture, why do you think the girl is sad? What can you infer about what time of year this may be? What do you think will happen once her dad leaves? And then what makes you say this? And as you're looking at the picture and you're thinking about these things, I want you to think to yourself, I read or I look at the picture, I know from my own experience, and so this tells me something new. So when I look at the picture, I think that the girl is sad because it has to be sometime near the first day of school. I know this because it's called Drop Off, and because the girl is crying and she has a backpack on and a uniform, I know that it has to be somehow related to school or a school situation. I think that she might be sad because she doesn't want to leave her dad. I know this because I had a similar experience when I went to preschool. I actually hid behind really large bushes instead of going into the preschool, and my mom had to try to find me and like ferret me out from behind the bushes before I would actually go into the school. What can I infer about what time of year this may be? Well, based on like what the dad is wearing and based on what the girl is wearing and what I know about school, I want to say that I think it's fall, because he's wearing like short sleeve shirt. So I know that he doesn't have a coat on. It's not winter time. I don't see any snow in the background. Although the background is really faded, I can see that there are leaves on the tree, like right here. And these look like they might be other people back here. And so I want to say that I think it's fall time. What do I think will happen once her dad leaves? Well, I have to take my own experience to help answer this question. I think initially at first she might be sad, but then she'll get busy within the school day and she'll forget about the traumatic experience of being dropped off. And what makes me say this is that I had a similar experience when I went to school for the first time. I remember in preschool being like really scared to go into the building and hiding behind those bushes. But then I remember when my mom came to pick me up, I didn't want to leave because we were singing and we were having so much fun. We're going to try this again, but using a different picture. And I'm going to model my thinking for two of the questions, but then I want you to think about what some of the answers would be on your own. This picture is called Dad by Aaron Becker. So I want you to look at the picture really closely, and then I want you to think, like, what do you think the daughter wants to do? What can you infer about what the dad is doing? What do you think might happen next? And then what makes you say this? And again, I want you to think, I read, I know, and so. So pause for just a second while you think about the answers to these 4 questions. So what do you think the girl wants to do? Hopefully you said fly a kite, because I can tell by looking at the picture and the way that she's looking over her dad's chair that she must want to fly a kite. What can I infer about what the dad is doing? Well, because of all of the books that are underneath the table, and because the dad is looking intently at his computer screen, I want to believe that he's working or he's doing something that's very important, that's drawing his attention away from his daughter. What do I think will happen next? Well, two things could happen next. One would be that he says, not right now, but maybe later. And I'm basing that on what happens in my house when my girls ask me to do something while I'm working. Or he might say to her, come on, let's go outside. I've been at this too long, because the same situation happens in my house as well, where if I have been working for a really long time and my daughters ask me to take a break, I go outside with them. Notice that for each of those 4 questions, I have to take what's happening in the picture and I draw from experiences in my own life in order to make an inference. Let's try this one more time. So this is Andy's Room by Glenn Kim. And you might recognize it from Toy Story. So this is Andy in Toy Story. I know this because this is Woody right here. And I've watched all 3 Toy Story movies and I do love them. And so I know I have some context here for like what's happening in this room. So what can you infer about what Andy's interests or hobbies are? How old do you think Andy might be based on what's in his room? What makes you say this? And then what evidence is there that supports Andy is an active boy? I want you to pause your video while you answer those 4 questions on a separate sheet of paper. When you're ready, unpause the video and come back and let's talk about them together. So, what can you infer about Andy's interests and hobbies? Well, I know that I see that he has a skateboarding picture up here, he has a Surf's Up, another skater magazine over here, he has video games over here, a skateboard, it looks like he has a guitar over here and a computer and some controls that are hanging out of his room. Also, it looks like cars, a race car driving. I'm not really sure what this picture is over here, but I can infer that Andy is very active because it looks like he plays 2 different types of guitar, because there's an electrical guitar here. And then I also can see, like, based on the Surf's Up and the skateboarding and the skater magazines that he has around, that he is involved in skateboarding, and then also video gaming. Based on all of the pictures in Andy's room, I think that he's going to be a little bit older. He looks like he might be in middle school or high school. I say this because of his shoes, how he has clothes that are just draped on his floor. He has things falling out of this basket over here. His belt is hung over, and I don't see any evidence of a crib or a toddler bed or stuffed animals or any other small toy that would make me think that he's a lot younger. I also see that he has a computer and a desk, so it makes me think that he's older and he's doing schoolwork at home to kind of like help keep him like on top of all of his activities. And then what evidence supports that Andy's an active boy? Well, again, all of the things that he has scattered around his room. So his gym shoes here, his gym socks, or rather just sneakers, a duffel bag here, his skateboard, his guitars, his video games. And it does look like that Andy is not in the room right now, and it looks like he left maybe in a hurry. So I want to say that he's extremely active. What we're going to do now is we're going to try making inferences by watching a short documentary. And we're going to use that same strategy. I read, I know, and so. Remember that when I read, it doesn't necessarily mean reading a text. It can be reading visually a picture. It can be looking at societal clues by reading a room and looking for social clues there. It can also be watching a video. I would like you to pause our video to watch a short documentary on the history of video games. Welcome back. So I want you to remember, I read, I know, and so, as we think about these 4 questions. So what can you infer about why video games were created? Why do you think creators wanted to expand video games into the home? Why do you think the first video games used the damsel in distress storyline? And then what do you think will continue to happen with video games? I want you to pause the video now so that you can answer these 4 questions, and we'll check your answers as soon as you're done. So, my first answer, I think the first video games were created to help the United States military in World War II. It said that because it happened actually during World War II, and I know that during that time the United States was very worried, and so I think that they helped try to maybe somehow help the war at some point. Question number 2. I think that maybe video game creators wanted to expand video games into homes because of the money that they could potentially make. I think a lot of things that we do in the United States are based on consumerism, and I know this from a lot of products that I see on the market where they start, in small groups and then spread to a wider audience. Question number 3. I think maybe the first video games use the damsel in distress because it's a popular storyline, and a lot of people can relate to it. No matter where you are in society, I know that from my reading in English, that there's a lot of girls that need to be rescued. And for whatever reason, this is a very popular storyline and it has been very popular across time. And so it's one that keeps getting repeated again and again. And I think that familiarity is what made the video game creators use that one. And then last, I think video games will continue to be popular and be used in the military, homes, and in science. I think that because I know from talking from all of my students that video games, there are new video games that are released all of the time. I actually have a friend who works in the Department of Defense, and he actually uses video games to help train soldiers. And he finds it's very easy to help soldiers relate to military problems through video games. And so I think that they're going to continue to grow in sophistication, and I think they're going to continue to grow in popularity. That's it for today. We're halfway through our lessons for the week. I'm really proud of you. Keep up the good work, and I'll see you here tomorrow.